Good afternoon, America. Welcome to the Meltdown. Interesting facts. Things are happening. The Twitter IPO is out, and in the short walk down the hallway, we went from 79% profit to 81%. That's how much the IPO has moved from the opening of its trading, which was $26 in the IPO. It is moving, and of course, it's going to move. Now, I listened in this morning and was really focused on some of the analysts and the numbers that were getting thrown around of what users are on Twitter versus Facebook. The number is under about 20%, plus or minus a point or two. That's the difference in Twitter users to Facebook. Twitter's going to come on strong. These are big numbers. Billionaires are made again. Michael and I were talking just before I hit the play button, and the median earner, which is the amount if you take it to a level of income where we're really trading, income median is about $27,500. The last time it was this low was 1998, and we were around 26.9. Now, the average hits 42.5 for round figures, which means if you average everybody out, the low end is making almost double when you average it out, which they're not. But the point, and this goes back to something I said earlier in the week, maybe even last week, the top 1% of income earners in America control 20% of the wealth. And ultimately, that is a huge swing. My concern as we look at how bad the economy really is, and I look at several different sites during the day and try to pull it all together so it makes sense when I come on air. Most people believe that this economy is in trouble. And the reality is that more people are getting in tune and learning more about getting into precious metals. Now, I'm not a gloom and doomer. I'm really not. But I take it at face value when I've got clients that go listen to people like a Ron Paul or certainly a Jim Rogers. And yes, we can all listen to the traders early in the morning, or you can record it, of course, and you can pick it up. But the truth is that for all of the opinions that are offered over the airwaves, what really matters is how does it affect your life, your family? What do you do to save money? And of course, in these times, saving money isn't really on the table for most Americans. It's about being able to pay your bills and continue to survive. Now, dealing with a referral just before we went on air, a little transaction, and I appreciate the business. It helps me move product and move inventory, but just under $500. And a gentleman acquiring some 1 ounce, 1 troy ounce pure silver bars, bullion bars basically, $24.75. Big distributors are selling them in quantity at $24.65. So for 10 cents, I'm dealing in small quantity and not making anywhere near what these guys are because they're buying in such large volume. I also sold some Barber dimes, and those were sold at 17.1 times face. And yes, they were definitely worth a little bit more, but you know what? It's about keeping clients happy and starting to fulfill the obligation and the requirements of being a collector. Jeff, thank you for understanding. Understanding is really the most important thing that I can share is the information. And yes, I'm going to educate people, and I certainly would encourage you and ask you to do business with us. We deal in all sizes and all volumes here in the state of Texas. There is no more taxable sequence for the acquisition of rare coins and precious metals, and that includes currency. Older currency. It can be old U.S. notes. It can be Republic of Texas. We call them obsolete notes because you can't tender them anymore. Gold certificates, valuable. Those are pieces that were made up through the 1930s. And ultimately, they go back further in time. They've got a value. You're going to pay $300 to $500 to $1,000, depending on the quality and the denomination and the year it was struck. It's all tax-free now. You don't have to pay anything to the state of Texas. And of course, that's why most people were always leaving the state to do business. Now you don't have to do that anymore. There's no tax. When I started up, it was $1,000. You had to break that threshold. Well, of course, now that's not such a challenge anymore, but it happens. And so there's no tax. And that's really great because, and I reiterate constantly about Public Law 99-185. That was the law that authorized the Treasury. Ronald Reagan signed it. And the language in the law, it reads, the coins are deemed to be numismatic. And I can tell you that a 1 ounce gold American Eagle goes up or down, and it's tied very tight to whatever gold's doing. That's now. Let the price of gold skyrocket. Let's get to $2,000 or $3,000. And you say, Brett, you're kidding yourself. It's not going to ever get there. I'm telling you, it is. The problem is the value of those dollars is going to be so diminished because of this issue of quantitative easing and the fact that the whole world is into quantitative easing. Interest rates are going to come back down. They've been coming back down since the beginning of September, the end of August. And as they start to come down, you see the banks willing to give up money a little bit more, but they're also taking on more leverage. Now, there's a big tax loophole that's about to get closed, and big business, Wall Street, is going to be affected by it. It's how stock options are paid through to executives and what write-offs the businesses are entitled to take between the difference when it was issued and the tendered price down the road. Those are tax deductions for the business. That loophole is going to get shut. And you say, Brett, what has that got to do with me? All it matters is that scrutiny is coming faster and faster. And of course, during this past 5.5 years or so of Obama being in office, the administration is under a great deal of pressure and a great deal of scrutiny. Certainly President Obama's opinion rating is dropping further and further. This nightmare of Obamacare really is bad. And so my concern is, how do I educate people in such a way that you understand that what it's all about isn't about today's dollar as much as it is the value of future dollars. Now, before coming on live, I'm looking at what's going on in the pits, the precious metals pits, and everything's down between 0.5% and 0.87%. Gold is down $10, almost 11, but the loser of the day is silver. It's only given up 19 cents, not even 1%. That's not a big change. If you compare that to the stock market, it's down 0.75%. So these aren't wild aberrations. Oil is down 0.75%. If you look at the dollar, it's up 0.5%. These are minor changes, and for the bulk of you, there's no effect in your portfolios. Not that would matter, depending on whether or not you're in one of the big losers or one of the big gainers of the day. Now, that's the difference, is that what makes up the Dow Jones Industrial Average is different than it used to be. And we don't compare things to what used to be. And so for me, talking to you and telling you to buy old Mercury dimes or Barber dimes or any of those coins, Barber quarters, Barber halves, you can get into Walking Liberty halves or Franklin's or Kennedy's, or you can go back to seeded coins, and there's multiple varieties. In some of the years, there were arrows. In some of the years, there were arrows and rays. And every different type of coin has its own logistics, its own value, its own eye appeal. And there are certain things that you're just going to like and other things you're not going to like. I had a couple of gentlemen in the store at the same time, and one of them's getting his toe in the water and starting to acquire some silver, and I encouraged him, please go to Ustream, please register to be able to chat online with me, and you can ask questions anytime. The show this afternoon a little bit earlier. We've got something we've got to take care of and attend to, but that means the show will be up faster. And Michael made sure that he corrected me right after we went off air. We are live. This is a live show. It goes up the moment I hit the stop button. Michael starts to format it so that we get it up on the web, and that's going to happen even faster. And I'm sure next week, starting probably at 9:15 or so, we'll get the first 30 minutes of the show done before the shop opens. Folks, you can come by the store. We're in Humble. It's easy to get to. Doesn't matter from what direction, really. But ultimately, we're right off of Interstate 59. You take the 1960 exit. If you're coming from the south, turn right at the first traffic light. That's old 1960. We're about a tenth of a mile down the street. If you cross the railroad tracks, you went too far. If you're coming south on 59, you take the 1960 exit. It's the second light, turn left. And if you cross the railroad tracks, you went too far. But you can call us anytime. That's 281-548-2646. 281-548-2646. Hit option 0, avoid the phone system, and don't get trapped in there. We'll be more than happy to help you. Now, these are times where you're going to get bombarded with a lot of different opportunities. And just because somebody sounds really good about what they're presenting doesn't mean it's a really good deal. It may not even be a good future deal. And so I want to be able to consult with you. I don't assume that I'm going to get 100% of anybody's business. But what I do expect and what I will provide is a clear, concise, and logical path of coins and ideas that will make sense to you, not just today, but down the road. And really, when you get right down to it, there are a lot of different guys that don't understand the implications of putting together a transaction in order to, quote, avoid anything. And folks, you don't want to avoid, you don't want to structure. Structuring is a $30,000 fine and possible jail time. I'm not interested in it. I'm not interested at $100 million. You want to do that kind of a transaction? I'm certainly going to encourage it. I'm certainly prepared to consult on it, and I want to do the business. I don't want you to try to figure out how to jerry-rig the system, because that's not smart. Now, I did make an error yesterday, and I want to correct it. The $15 an hour minimum wage is at SeaTac, Washington, not Washington, D.C., although I'm sure that if Michael will look it up, we'll see that the Washington, D.C. minimum wage is probably higher than the $7.85 I think we have here in Texas, but I trust Michael will look that up while I'm jabber-jawing about things. Starbucks, folks, I like Starbucks. I prefer it more for the tea than I do for the foo-foo coffee. And I tell you, I stopped at the local shop this morning. I love tea. And the line was probably a tenth of a mile long. There was a local store that had shut down, and so they had drawn all that traffic in. And of course, the employees followed suit. And my point is that Starbucks, with its 6 or 7 employees minimum on the clock at every moment, have to crank out a lot of coffee. They emptied the bucket that holds all the coffee grounds. It's huge. I was shocked. The barista was very, very busy. And why is it important? Because when you get right down to it, one of the things that I've been told many, many times is important, thank you, Michael, is that coffee is reached its 5-year low, the beans themselves. And so Starbucks is making more money than it's ever made. Most roasters are. The information Michael provided is that the minimum wage, the national minimum, is $7.25. In Washington, D.C., it's $8.25. SeaTac up in Seattle at 15, nearly double, more than double the national minimum, and certainly higher than the Washington, D.C. minimum. Michael, thank you. Folks, these all are factors that matter. And the reason that gold and silver run, why do people go to the precious metals? Because they don't trust the economy, because they don't trust the world. And there were bombs going off. There were absolutely, quote, riots, for lack of a better term, in Beijing. Tiananmen Square had uprisings again. There are problems in China, a communist nation that really doesn't want to give you much rope. People are getting rope, and they're starting to talk about it. And it's that chaos in the world that will force different commodities to appreciate. Now, we all know about the problems in copper. You know, copper thieves are everywhere. If you've got a vacant property, you better figure out how to secure it and keep an eye on it, because obviously they'll go rip the copper out. It's important because crime goes up as the economy worsens. And so you start seeing a rise in murders. Excuse me. You see rises in murders, and all of those signs are clear that we're in an economy that's in trouble. And so when I mentioned that China is going to start to regulate and control the amount of vehicles that manufacturers are able to add, it's because of the pollution problem. These concerns will continue to mount. And I can tell you, because I sat here and I watched it happen back in the 70s and 80s when I was pretty much a kid. I was in my teens. But I saw it in 2008. We're talking less than 5 years ago. Well, a little more than 5, but 5 years ago, when the curve started to change. The delay in receiving precious metals went out to 4 weeks. The U.S. Mint has suspended production of gold coins and suspended silver coins at different times. I can tell you in 1996, so few people were interested in silver American Eagles that the mintage dropped below 4 million business strike coins. Today we're going to approach upwards of 40 to 50 million of them. We were on pace for 50 million coins, and the U.S. government owns 0 silver. That means there's companies that are producing the planchets, those are the blanks, so that the U.S. Mint can strike them, because we don't have the staying power. I mean, remember, Apple's got more cash than the U.S. government does. The times are changing. And so you can stay in the cheapest commodity, and if you've got $100 to $1,000, then the next statement's not going to be relative to you. But ultimately, I love silver dollars. I love Morgan and Peace. I love seeded dollars. I love trade dollars. And you can go all the way back to bust dollars. The first coin, 1794 and 1795. These are major rarities. And ultimately, in any condition, a 1795 dated half dollar or dollar is worth more than $1,000. That's just if you can read the date. Now, it takes somebody who understands what they're working on or what your goal and objective is to be able to set it up in such a fashion that you can build something that matters down the road. And so you can build a type collection. That's a variety of each of the coins struck, like I mentioned in the case of the dollar coin. You can start with bust dollars, and you can get into seeded and trade and Morgan and Peace and Ike and Susan B's and Sacagaweas. There's so many different ways to build these things. You can build date runs. You can build mint runs, all the Carson City silver dollars. There's so many different ways to do it, and it's about sitting and looking at what you've got and coming up with a game plan, discussing what your goals and objectives are, and part of that's your age and when you think you're going to have children and when the children need cars and college and all the other variables that play into this. One of the great shows that I watched not too long ago was a family that wanted to trim some of its overhead. And so they got into managing their cable bill. And they got into looking at their phone bills and their cell phone bills. And by the time they got done carving, they had easily knocked off well over $1,500. Doesn't seem like a lot, I know, to some of us. But you know what? If your income is 20 grand and you carve off 1,000, 5% matters. That $1,000 is something that another family is going to love and appreciate. It's kind of like when I get the Thanksgiving feasts here in Houston, and I get those mailings, and they talk about 65 cents a meal to feed all the people at the George R. Brown. That's our big convention center. Not everybody's going to buy gold. Not everybody's going to buy silver. And sometimes the silver is going to create a problem of portability. How easy is it to store? How easy is it to get to? And so I talk about the fact that currency is illegal to put in a safety deposit box. Technically, that makes it legal tender. And so you get the question of legal tender. So does that mean gold bars are not legal tender, but they could be confiscated because they're bullion? Probably. 1 ounce gold American Eagles are legal tender, but it's only $50 in spite of the fact that the price of gold is trading at over $1,300 an ounce. So you get back to the same question. How do you build these portfolios? How do you do it inside of your IRA? What, Brett, are you trying to send and tell us? And what I'm trying to tell you more than anything is to own different types of coins that you really like. Own everything from half cents. Heck, you can go all the way back to coins from the colonies. You can buy coins that sell for a nickel a piece. You can buy them for 500,000 to 5 million a piece. Every single genre of the income bracket is open to doing this. Now, it matters to me. It matters because if 50% of this country in some form or fashion collects coins, it means you've got well over 100 million people that are in. And whether it's the pocket change, the wheat pennies, old Jefferson nickels, or $20 gold pieces. Heck, there's territorial gold that sells for hundreds of thousands of dollars. There's something out there for every single budget. And so you get your hands on a red book. I start by telling you, if you have to, go to the library. If you don't want to spend the money on a book you're going to probably throw away anyway, go to the library and look through the book. Look at the pictures. Decide based on the age of coins. I've got some early 1800 dated large cents, and I've got some half cents. All of these coins are 1801 or 1802 through about the 1830s. Some of them trade for only a couple of $100 a piece. They're third-party authenticated and graded. You don't have to worry about that. They're graded by NGC or PCGS. And why get them authenticated? Because you want to know whether or not there's problems with the coins. Have they had rim dings? Were they cleaned and whizzed? Are there problems with the coins? It matters down the road when you go to liquidate them. Now, I look at some sites pretty often, and dealers that will sell coins that are not graded. Their experience tells them what the quality and condition is. And I got to tell you, there are some coins that are absolutely not worth grading. Most wheat pennies, if they're circulated, are not worth grading. You don't spend $8 or $10 or $20 or $50 to grade a coin if it's worth $1. Those coins literally come by the bag, and I'll sell you plenty of them. And you don't have to worry about authenticity, because who the heck would take the time to counterfeit a coin for a nickel? But when you get to coins that are a few $100s, and a grade point can matter a lot. You can see coins from $50 to $100 to $500 in 3 different grades, and that's why grading is important. When I talk about $20 gold pieces, the difference between a mint state 61 and a mint state 63 in some cases doesn't warrant the grading of the coin to upgrade it. Sure, it's worth a higher grade, but if there's no money in it, if you're going to spend the profit, why do it? That's why coin grading is so important. And knowing the authenticity back in 10 years ago, all the way back into the 80s, they body bagged the coins. They didn't give them a net grade or call them guaranteed authenticity, genuine. They body bagged them, and you had to send them in again and again and again and again and try to get them in the holder. And if they didn't work, then you sold them at a loss. Well, now there's genuines. And folks, I'm telling you this, I know some of you will listen very closely. Online auctions are just that, online. You don't know who's shilling who. You don't know who's being real and not being real. And you can get caught up in the frenzy, and I've seen it happen where guys pay 300 and 400% more than they should to own certain types of coins. And you spend 30 grand and you come in here and I tell you they're worth 8, and you're like, well, but I bought them online. And I'm like, go ahead and try and sell them and see if you can get your money out of them online, because there's no dealer that understands the market that would buy them for those kinds of premiums. And ultimately, that's what this boils down to. So for me, it's simple. I want to own a little gold, a little silver, a little bit of platinum, and I want my rare coins, and I want my currency. I love material from the Republic and the government of Texas. And we've got a small cache of it, probably under $100,000 or so. But folks, you can own notes from the 1830s to the 1840s. Now, some of these notes are going to bear the signature of Sam Houston. Sam didn't sign them. Sam was injured during the war. He signed a lot of stuff. And so in most cases, his signature doesn't command a huge premium. It's a great way to own a signature of Sam Houston without it being his signature. You can still buy his signature, but it isn't worth a fraction of what Stephen F. Austin's is, because Austin was killed back in the 1830s. Sam lived to, I want to say, the first part of the 1930s. Ultimately, the difference in age and the difference in time allowed for Sam to put a lot of signatures out there. But owning the currency from the government of the Republic, owning material, bonds, warrants, other documents, they're all out there. And I'd love to represent you in an auction. If you don't know what you're doing, pay me 10% premium and let me go to work for you, and we'll put together something really neat. And so, once again, whether you're looking to spend a couple of $1,000 or a couple of $100,000 or a couple of $1 million, there's a way to build Texas around us, because we're Texans. And if you go to the meltdown.com and click on the Texas Commem banner, Michael and I will probably work on making an upgrade in that in the next couple of months. We'll provide you the video. You can listen a little bit. Ultimately, folks, we love coinage around here. And whether you're trying to buy it or sell it, heck, I'll take trades with you. I'll look at anything of value. Bought everything from slot machines to a ball and chain that dates to the Civil War. And all I'm really telling you is it's what you like, that matters. What other people are going to like. I've had things come through the store that I had no interest in. And I buy a lot of different things. I guess that's really what I want to bring home. Now, I look at what other people market coins for. And I like mint sets and I like proof sets. It's one of the easiest ways most people get started in the coin industry. And so whether you're building an ounce of silver from 100 nations around the world or more, if you want fractional coins, if you're looking to build date runs or mint runs, there's so many different ways of doing this. Most people are familiar with the West Point Mint modern day. West Point, Philadelphia, San Francisco, those are the easy ones. But coins were minted in New Orleans. They were minted in Charlotte, North Carolina, and Dahlonega, Georgia, Carson City, Nevada. Those mints produced a lot of coins. It's what survived, what was legal tender, all of it, and what survived as uncirculated. Because what uncirculated today could be higher grade 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, because coin graders come and go. They open up their own businesses. They decide they don't want to work for somebody else, and so they go into a different industry. But the 27 years of coin grading lead us to a place where things change. And so I've seen coins that were $150 coins command $1,500 because they were in the first generation holder from PCGS, the Professional Coin Grading Service. I love coins and rattler holders. Ultimately, I love coins overall, but I saw recently where one of the first generation holders from an NGC, black background, not the retro, that's new, that's being done this year, but the original black holder went for almost 1,000 times the premium because of the holder, because you don't get to see them very often. Matter of fact, in all the years I've been doing this, I've never seen one up close and personal. Wish I'd known about that one. I would have probably liked to have bid on it. Ultimately, it's owning coins other people are going to want. It's not just a cliche. And yes, you can stay tied close to the precious metal, or you venture out a little bit. And when you get started, I'm going to tell you right now, I've got a client who has spent multiple $3,000 to $5,000 transactions with me. He's written checks. They're pretty simple transactions. But what I'm really going to hit home with is that he had a conversation with me Tuesday. And on Tuesday, Brett, I think I want to make a big transaction. And so what do you think about that? Well, what I think is that I can't time a market. I seldom do that. This is a market that can change on a dollar, literally, or a dime, I guess. And so in 2008, when gold and silver were getting gobbled up and the market started to move, we left the store one night, came back the next morning, and the price of precious metals hadn't moved, but several large transactions took place, and the premium on a 1 ounce gold American Eagle jumped by 11 percentage points. Silver junk bags went up 30% because somebody made a huge acquisition. And we went into a mode of 4 to 6 weeks delay to get delivery of the merchandise. That's a different situation than I've ever seen before. And in the middle of 2009, when we went to allocated deliveries, and 2010 was allocated deliveries. 2011 was a challenge. We saw the interruption of commemorative gold coins because the mint couldn't keep up with the demand or the price of the precious metal, and they weren't sure they were going to get the planchets. That's coming again, and it's going to happen quick. And when you see GLD or SLV, a couple of the biggest ETFs, dumping metal, when they got to turn around and start buying metal, like a couple of months ago when we saw influx into GLD, folks, if the metal's not there, the price is going to rise faster and faster, and the metals traders may not be able to cover the positions. Those are good situations, and I think they're situations that are going to become more realistic over the next couple of years. Do I think the metals are going to go lower? They certainly could. And even if they went down by 5 percentage points, if your plan is to go out 5 or 10 or 20 years, then don't get caught in the little aberration. That's what I'm going to really hit home about. Kind of like the stock market. Here we are at 15.7 yesterday. Dow's down 100 points. We're back to 15,640. And where will the market be tomorrow? I have no idea. Do I think that the price of gold could dip below 1,300? Of course I do. At one point today, it was at 1296. Did it stay there? No. It jumped right back up. Is $1,000 conceivable? Anything's conceivable. If it got that low, the amount of buyers, the central banks that are jumping in are going to jump hard. And when I say they're going to jump hard, they may take everything that's available off the market. And if it goes away that fast, that's going to affect the price of the coins, the metals. Excuse me. It's going to affect everything. When I talk about everything, I'm talking about precious metals. That's my arena. I think diamonds are going to start commanding big premiums again. And when they do, you'll see these transactions of 30, 40, 50, 100 million that diamonds go away. Gems are pretty common, you know, particularly small gem. You got to be careful. And from being careful, don't get caught in little material that's being sold to you for a lot of money. Quality is always going to matter. But if the quality is little bitty, and it's easy to obtain. One of the problems I have with a friend who she is a cable TV junkie, and she buys lots of stuff through a credit card that's very, very common. And some of the ites, some of those stones that get mounted, are just horrible stones. And they have no value in spite of the fact that the presentation sounds great. Well, you can fill up shopping bags full of that stuff, and it isn't worth very much money. That's my concern. And so as I make the claim and make the statement, companies around it bothers me that you can literally buy a lot of jewelry on cable TV and have nothing to show for it but the credit card bills. And ultimately, you can't go sell it anywhere because nobody cares about those little bitty gemstones. Nobody. Nobody. Big stones, maybe. Little stones, never. And so, because of gold buyers, because of that plethora of expansion and dealers that were all over the place, now they're all falling by the wayside. They've got to have more intricate education about being able to deal in other things. And so that's what I want to get near the end of today's show to discuss. If you like it, we can talk about it. That may not make it a great value down the road, but if it's something that you like and you want to spend a few $100 or a few $1,000s and you've got it to spend it and enjoy the hobby. Remember that numismatics is only about collecting. And so whether you collect it for future appreciation or not, multiple dates and multiple coins and multiple qualities is what substantiates that you collect. If you've got 100,000, if you've got 1,000,000, if you got 10 million, move things around, stay in line with what financial planners are saying, money managers. Heck, I've even had accountants send me referrals. And almost everybody says 15 to 20% of your money should be in tangible assets, gold or silver, rare coins. All makes sense. And folks, if you think the economy's bad today, coming out of a bad economic situation, you can see the price of precious metals, specifically rare coins, move up by as much as 800%. That's the kind of appreciation people are looking for. So, depending on what you like, give me a shout, call me, toll free outside of the Houston market. You can reach me at 877-705-2646. That's 877-705-2646. Hit option 0, get a live voice, don't get caught in the phone system, or 281-548-2646. We stream the show at themeltdown.com. Over 500 plus shows. Michael's working on getting us to the next set because apparently Ustream cuts us off at about 500. So that's a little more work for Michael to work on. Folks, if you want to email me questions, comments, pictures, concerns, fire them away. Brett, B-R-E-T-T, at thegoldexchange.net. Now, I never want to get off air without talking about Texas Children's Hospital, the Downs Clinic, and the Ronald McDonald House. I love the Ronald McDonald House. There's 20 rooms. They allow 40 to 60, 80 people to spend the night in the hospital where families can take care of and venture out and visit with their loved ones, the small kids around the hospital any time of the day or night. If you can provide a hot meal, please call 832-824-8600. That's 832-824-8600. Nancy Allen and her staff will be more than happy to help accommodate you, tell you what you need to be able to do or provide. And if you can provide a tithe or an offering, please give them a call. The Ronald McDonald House is very close to me. I've stayed there for almost 2 weeks back in 2011. Now, the Downs Clinic is very special because my son Jason has very mild Downs. And Dr. Ostermeyer and her staff have gotten so busy with so many kids that they actually moved off the Texas Children's campus at Fannin and moved just slightly south of there. Now, if you get the opportunity, please go to the website, themeltdown.com. You can go to the banner for the Downs Clinic. Your donation goes straight to the clinic. Please understand the information is totally anonymous for me. In other words, I don't get any of your information, not your name, your address, your phone number, or the amount of money you provided. I appreciate the people at the Downs Clinic, the doctors, nurses, staff, and the volunteers throughout Texas Children's Hospital, throughout the medical center, throughout the country and the world. I appreciate people who take care of kids. Folks, we'll be back tomorrow. sometime between 1:30 and 2, just depending on what's going on out there. Appreciate you listening in. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to reach out to me anytime. I've given you the information. Look forward to talking to you tomorrow. God bless you, and thanks for listening in. No?